The Wolf on the Road. Chapter 5. Shadows in the Fog. James's grip tightened on the steering wheel as the wind howled outside his truck, sending eerie whispers through the cracks of the old Peterbilt's windows. The heavy weight of the past night pressed on his mind, the memories of the figure in the road, the haunting voice over the CB radio, and the sedan crashing into the ditch. But worse than all of it was the feeling he couldn't shake, that something was still following him. The road ahead had disappeared into the dense fog that clung to the landscape, thick and unyielding. His headlights barely penetrated the mist, giving him no more than a few feet of visibility. The truck's engine groaned beneath him, its steady rumble a comforting sound in the oppressive silence of the night. But even the familiar hum of the Peterbilt wasn't enough to keep the fear at bay. James couldn't help but glance into his rearview mirror again, expecting to see the glowing eyes of that figure in the fog, watching him, waiting. His heartbeat quickened every time he checked, but each time there was nothing. Only the swirling fog, wrapping itself around the truck like a living thing. "Just keep moving," he muttered under his breath, trying to calm himself. "It's all in your head." But it wasn't. He knew that now. The strange encounters, the whispers, the shadows, they were too real, too vivid. The curse that had latched onto him like a dark shadow hadn't just turned him into something monstrous. It had drawn other things to him, ancient things that lurked in the corners of the world, waiting for moments of weakness to strike. As the truck rolled forward, a strange noise cut through the quiet, a distant thumping sound. James's eyes narrowed, his attention sharpening as the noise grew louder, more distinct. It was rhythmic, almost like footsteps. No, it can't be footsteps. Not this far out. He slowed the truck, listening intently, his pulse thundering in his ears. The sound was closer now, almost directly behind him. Without thinking, he glanced into the mirror again, and this time his heart lurched. In the fog, just behind the truck, was a shape. Large, hulking, and moving with deliberate, heavy steps. "It's not possible." James's breath caught in his throat. The figure was gaining on him, cutting through the fog with unnatural speed. His hands trembled on the wheel, panic rising in his chest. He slammed his foot down on the gas pedal, the engine roaring to life as the truck surged forward. The tires screeched against the wet pavement, sending a spray of mud and gravel in every direction. But no matter how fast he went, the figure was still there, keeping pace, its shadowy form looming closer and closer. The CB radio crackled again, the static filling the cabin like an unwelcome guest. Then, through the hiss of interference, came a voice, faint, but unmistakable. "James!" His heart pounded harder. It was the same voice he had heard before, the same one that had whispered to him in the woods. But now it sounded different. Closer. More insistent. "James, you can't run!" The words chilled him to the core. He gritted his teeth, his knuckles white on the wheel. Whatever this thing was, it wanted him, needed him, and it wasn't going to stop. Without warning, the truck's headlights flickered, casting the road into near darkness. James cursed under his breath, slapping the dashboard in frustration. The electrical system had never given him trouble before, but now, with every flicker of light, it felt as though something was trying to snuff out any hope of escape. The fog was thickening, curling around the truck like ghostly fingers, and the road was becoming harder to see. But there, through the mist, he spotted something, a flickering light up ahead. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to give him a sliver of hope. A gas station. A beacon in the endless sea of fog. James pushed the truck harder, the engine groaning as it sped toward the faint glow. The figure behind him seemed to fade into the mist, but he didn't dare look back. Not now. Not when he was so close. The gas station was old and rundown, its neon sign barely hanging on to life, flickering erratically. But it was shelter, a place where he could stop and catch his breath. James pulled the truck into the lot, the tires screeching as he came to a halt. He jumped out of the cab, his eyes scanning the fog, expecting the figure to emerge at any moment. But the night was still, unnervingly so. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. The gas station was abandoned, its windows boarded up and its pumps rusted over. But there was light inside, flickering and weak, but enough to tell him someone, or something, was still here. James hesitated for a moment, his instincts screaming at him to get back in the truck and drive as far away as possible. But something compelled him forward, a nagging curiosity that he couldn't ignore. He approached the door slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel beneath him. The door creaked open with a groan, and as he stepped inside, the smell of old oil and decay hit him. The light came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. Shelves lined the walls, empty and covered in dust. But there, in the corner, was something that made his blood run cold. A figure, hunched over, its back to him, moving slowly in the dim light. James's heart pounded in his chest as he took a step closer. The figure didn't move, didn't acknowledge his presence. "Hello?" James's voice was barely above a whisper, but it echoed through the empty station. The figure stopped, its head tilting slightly to the side. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, it turned to face him. James's blood froze. It was the same face he had seen in the mirror all those nights ago, the same face he had seen in his nightmares. But this time, it was real. His own face, twisted into something monstrous. The whispers returned, louder now, filling the room with their insistent noise. And then, as the figure stepped closer, the lights went out. James was plunged into darkness, the whispers growing louder, closer, until they were all around him. And then silence. He could feel the presence, looming in the dark, waiting for him to make the next move. But there was no escape. Not this time.